I'm Casey Richards with the Chicago District Golf Association. I'm the Senior Managing Director of Communications and Marketing.
I'm Tim Merrick with the Chicago District Golf Association. I'm the Senior Director of Communications.
I'm Preston McClellan with Golf Space Collective.
And I am Santana Shipley, the Community Operations Manager for the IAGA. And today we are here to talk about the Chicago Adaptive Open. So just to kind of get us started and dive into that first question, what were some of the key considerations or decision points that led to the decision of using live coverage for this event?
Definitely. So it all happened pretty quickly, honestly. So it really wasn't until, kind of the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, that we even decided that we were going to have an event in 2024. And so once that decision was made in early January, conversations with our executive director and the individuals overseeing the event, we wanted to find ways that we can really, make this inaugural event special. Some of those had to do with the administrative aspects of the event. For example, it had a purse, which was something that hadn't been seen in the adaptive golf community before. But then we really hadn't seen any other examples of any of these adaptive events being live streamed. So we just thought that that was another opportunity to really spotlight the event and make it one to remember. We also feel like that it had a little bit of a broader appeal within the golf community and maybe even outside of the golf community than, a traditional stroke play championship might, just in terms of the human interest angle. So those were some of the elements that went into the decision of why we wanted to do it. And then Tim, if you want to maybe talk through a couple of the initiatives and aspects that we had to kind of go through once we decided that we actually wanted to do it.
Yeah, so as Casey mentioned, we haven't really delved into the live stream arena at all with any of our championships. So it was something new to us when the prerogative came down from our executive director to research things like this. So we put out some feelers. We had some contacts within the Chicago area, and even beyond that, of just getting to see what something like this would look like, what it would cost, all of the resources that would go into it. So before going into those calls, we felt like we wanted to make this something that you would see on TV, right? We didn't want a one camera or a two camera type event. We wanted to be really well produced. If we were going to do it, we wanted to do it right. So we had introductory calls with about 4 companies. We narrowed that down to about 2 quotes, and then we decided on a company called College Golf Network. They've done a lot of amateur and college event live streams in the past. They've got 2 founders who are previous college golfers, so they kind of know the space. And so we worked with them to, begin planning what this would look like. We had bi-monthly calls beginning in March, just to start planning out, graphics, logos, how do we get player information, discussing the format. Did we want to do featured groups? Did we want to do hole by hole? Did we want to do select holes? Things of that nature, all stuff that was new to us and things that we didn't really, think about prior to going into this, but was going to be really key as we went to, get on the ground and live stream it during the event itself.
That makes a lot of sense. And so as you guys were kind of going into the event, I know the USGA has obviously, been really featuring the Adaptive Open and kind of pushing its associations to do more around it. So did you utilize anything from their adaptive playbook and kind of that help shape promotional strategy or kind of the reasons why you did this?
Well, I know from the administrative aspect, yes, that playbook was relied upon heavily from, all the nitty gritty in terms of, the carts needed, the special bathroom accommodations, things along those lines. It was definitely used a lot. From a communications perspective, really the area that we focused on the most in the playbook was like some of the preferred terminology to use when you're talking about the athletes in the competition. And then this doesn't really relate to the playbook specifically, but we also evaluated and looked at the coverage of the USGA and other allied associations had done from their various adaptive opens to figure out some of the best strategies of how to spotlight these stories. I think what we wanted to balance is this is certainly a competition and there's going to be, champions both overall and in the various flights and sports classifications, but it's also about just telling the remarkable stories that really each and every one of these competitors have. So we really kind of synthesized a lot of the content that had been produced around the previous US Adaptive Opens to figure out how to kind of best balance that.
Yeah, and just adding to that, we did actually have staff members who were involved in the administration of the event travel to other AGA's adaptive events. We had someone go to the Georgia Adaptive Open, one in Florida, maybe one in Indiana, just to, again, see how the administration boots on the ground work, and how we can pick and choose kind of, hey, we like that. Hey, I think we can do this in a different way, knowing our facility and partners and how we were going to implement all that stuff. So again, just trying to research and get as much into the adaptive community as we could to put on a professional event.
Awesome. And I think that shifts us kind of just into kind of going off maybe other associations just in regards to promotional aspects. Were there any strategies that the CDGA used to engage with the adaptive golf community to promote participation? And were there any special outreach methods that you guys used that proved successful?
So our greatest resource during this whole process was the USAGA, the United States Adaptive Golf Alliance, and specifically Jonathan Snyder, who I know many in the Allied Golf Association community know. Jonathan and the USAGA are based here in the Chicago area, so we were able to interact with him, multiple times in person, and really relied on him extremely heavily in terms of the best outreach methods, how to get in contact with these adaptive players and things along those lines. So they were really an invaluable resource. So, as I think a lot of the people probably know, this adaptive golf community is very tight knit. So a lot of it was honestly word of mouth. Once Jonathan kind of put the word out to the group that we were going to be doing this event, that it was going to have a purse, that it was going to be live streamed, and all the other things we did with it, we received a pretty strong initial reception. We also did do various communication outreach through our regular methods that we would use to promote our events to our members, such as our magazine, our newsletters. But obviously what's different with this is that you're speaking to kind of a very specific segment of golfer, right? The vast majority of our membership's not going to be able to play in this. So we really relied more on kind of the targeted outreach through Jonathan, through those, in-person visits that Tim alluded to earlier, as it relates specifically to getting individuals for the field. What was different from what we would do for our normal events is that we knew we were going to need a large stable of volunteers to try to pull off everything that we were trying to accomplish. So that message was really what went out the most, I would say, to our membership as a whole was, hey, we're going to be putting on this special event. You can be a part of it by volunteering your time as a walking scorer or just an overall, assistant for some of the players and things along those lines. So honestly, a lot of the promotion in terms of filling the field kind of took care of itself, but we did have to do a lot of outreach to the general golf community to try to get them to sign up as volunteers. And in the end, I think we ended up getting about 70 volunteers. So we actually had more volunteers than we did participants in the event. So
yeah, and just building off of that, some of the stuff that proved pretty successful. Casey mentioned our magazine, our print issues. We've got 6 that go out and print throughout the year. And Casey wrote a nice short piece just promoting the event itself. We actually had a reader provide a generous donation in which they donated all of the entry fees for all of the players, just wanting to get involved. So again, that word of mouth, just putting it out there, you never know who's going to be reading that, what resources they may have available to them. And then we also, by word of mouth, got working with Northway, which is a company that Andy North, 2-time US Open champion, is involved with. And they actually came out, we had a nice, we celebrated a couple anniversaries during that weekend. So we had a nice ceremony on Friday night before the event, Saturday and Sunday. We invited all of the participants and then obviously a lot of our stakeholders to the event. Andy spoke, and then he was actually in the first tee on Saturday morning. So just utilizing his reach, his involvement with the USGA committees, also helped kind of gain a little traction and some street cred, if you will, with the event.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that street cred and that kind of community involvement and buy-in is always obviously huge, and it's great to see how much volunteer participation you got too. So I think that's obviously shows how much interest there is in the golf community in these types of events. So kind of switching gears just a little bit, but from the live coverage standpoint, how, based on how it went for this event, how does that kind of shape how you plan to do it both for this event in the future and maybe for other CDGA events as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was very well received, and to the point where, we feel like it kind of has to be part of the overall experience with this event, as we move forward. So diving into the numbers a little bit, the total views on the stream eclipsed 1,500, and then unique viewers, we were right around the 1,000 mark. So we weren't really sure what to expect going in. But in talking with the College Golf Network folks, they seemed to think that these were pretty strong, especially for an event that, is a little more specific in nature than some of the broader like college events that they would broadcast. So we were really happy with that. The total watch time was up over 400 hours. So analytically, we were pleased. And then just anecdotally, the feedback that we got was off the charts from, the players, from the players' families, reaching out to us on social media saying, "Hey, I'm watching my brother play right now. This is awesome." And what was really cool too is that when you live stream something on YouTube, obviously it kind of archives as well. So we, almost had as many viewers on the stream after the fact as when it was live, which to me shows kind of like the staying power of it and things like that. And a lot of it was probably the players going back and, seeing where they were featured and things along those lines. So yeah, in general, it was really positive. Definitely part of our strategy for this event moving forward, and potentially for some of our other championships too, whether it be, our state amateur or our CDGA amateur, which is a match play championship. I think definitely a lot of possibilities there.
Yeah, and just to add and follow up to that, you can inform people and reach out and promote this as much as possible, but there were a few contestants within the event that weren't aware of the live stream aspect of this. We actually had a volunteer on one of the holes who had his iPad out on his cart and was watching the live stream. So again, players were watching that, sneaking in and seeing what was going on ahead of them and things of that nature. So obviously, when we wanted to get this off the ground, it's the first year, and we hope to build on that kind of success moving into not only this event next year, but as we mentioned, future tournaments and championships that we contest on an annual basis.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect transition into just kind of reflecting on the success of the event, just kind of going back and looking at any of the obstacles that you guys face with the topic of live coverage. So for another association that might be interested in kind of diving into something like this for the first time, was there anything that you would go back and, for future events, you would kind of look at and consider, and kind of, I guess, explain to other associations that they should be ready for if they kind of take on a similar task?
Definitely. Well, obviously, cost is kind of the number one factor that relates to something like this, both, monetarily, but then also from a resource perspective. A lot of time went into preparing for this and helping to pull it off. So for us, we had just kind of built it into the overall budget we had for the event. The group that we worked with did give us, kind of every opportunity to monetize it in terms of like segment sponsors or presenting sponsors or things along those lines. So we did incorporate some of our corporate partners, but they were more kind of on a add-on basis. But, moving forward, I think maybe with a little more time and a little more strategy behind it, we could position this as, a key part of our corporate partner package, or perhaps even offer up, an overall presenting sponsor ship of it to help offset a little bit of the cost. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of first and foremost is as with anything, it's going to be a significant investment. So, but there should be opportunities to help offset that cost. Again, it's time consuming, both ahead of time in terms of the planning meetings that we had with the group. As Tim said, we met with them once every couple of weeks in the months leading in, and then obviously more frequently as it got closer. But then also during the event, as the stream went live, both Tim and I were involved from the standpoint of Tim was one of the broadcasters for a little bit. I was out on the course kind of helping them line up some interviews and things along those lines. And so even though the group we worked with did provide all the equipment, all of the camera operators and things along those lines, it's still something that you're going to need to be involved with almost as kind of like a producer role. And in turn, it did take away from some of the coverage that we would normally do that we weren't able to do just because we were being used elsewhere. Like, for example, at all of our championships, we normally produce our own video content, but we weren't really able to do that on the final day because, we were being involved with the stream, which again, obviously was a video deliverable, but not quite the same that we were able to do. And we're fortunate enough to have a staff of a communication staff of 4, so we were able to kind of divide and conquer. But if it's a 1 or 2 person group, the expectation kind of needs to be set going in to say, we can do this stream, but we might not be able to do, get all sorts of photos that I might normally be able to get, or anything along those lines. Another thing that needs to be thought out ahead of time is just kind of the overall structure of the stream, whether you want it to be featured groups, whether you want it to be featured holes, how long you want it to be, things along those lines. So ultimately what we decided on, circling back to saying that this event is more about telling the stories of all the competitors, not just the ones at the top of the leaderboard, we wanted to do featured holes. So that way every single competitor would be, on the stream at least a couple of times as they went through the holes. I wish we would have done a better job at selecting which holes we would do. So we did 16 and 18 because 16 was a par 3, 18 was a par 4, and that hole in between was kind of a nice buffer to allow different people to be showed and things like that. However, the 16th hole did have a water hazard, so there was a lot of kind of like dead and awkward time spent, trying to figure out if the ball went into the water and then, watching them take drops and then hit from there. So like, I think you want to be strategic about what holes you pick in terms of, the ones that are going to be the most playable and provide the most opportunity for, kind of highlight moments as opposed to, just trying to fight to make par, to make bogey or anything along those lines. So, Tim, any other things that I missed there?
Yeah, so we referenced it earlier, these player information forms that we actually got from College Golf Network, and I think we're going to utilize moving forward within our championships. As Casey said, we cover our championships. We've both been here over 6 years now. And so we kind of know our championship players and know their backstories, but a lot of these players, as we said, this community travels, so we weren't familiar with their backgrounds, who's who, things of that nature. So these player information forms, we asked about, general information about, where you're from, favorite golf memories, your dream foursome, things like that, but also background into their diagnosis. And this community is very willing to discuss all of that. So it was nice to fill that airtime with, background on how some of these impairments may have come to fruition and how these people, are powering through that in playing golf and things of that nature. I would say too, going along with the player information, we did have a bit of a struggle identifying players. We're not on the golf course. Our stream and production room was inside the clubhouse. And with these players not being local, we kind of didn't know who was who. We did try to put caddy bibs, colorize caddy bibs as they do on the PGA Tour, just to see, okay, red bib is John Smith, blue bib is XYZ, but that still kind of proved to be tough. And you don't want to obviously provide information about somebody if that's their only airtime about, if it's incorrect, right? So I think we can do a better job of identifying players ahead of time, so that way the broadcast is a little more smooth of that nature. And then we also wanted to gather content ahead of time, right, to fill those dead air time, provide breaks for the announcers and commentators and the production crew itself. So we utilized various video materials that we've had just, lying around. Obviously, our commercials that we produced and air on Golf Channel around the Chicago district already. We utilized it again to promote our corporate partners. So we had a couple of videos from our corporate partners just promoting their products and, the USA GA promoting what they do as well. and then just gathering that video content ahead of time so that, hey, if we need to take a break or if something technically is wrong, we can just, play this 6-minute YouTube video or some of the content we got the day before to fill that time. So those are just some of the things that, we wanted to get ahead on. And we did a pretty good job this year, but I think with more time and efforts behind it, I think we can do a better job moving forward.
Yeah, and one other thing to note too that we were able to do to kind of bring some legitimacy, I guess, to the stream is that we have a local sportscaster here who is, on the local, nightly news for upwards of 30 years, avid golfer, avid CDGA member, recently retired. So we were able to bring him in to kind of be like the voice of the telecast, and he was complimented by Tim and some other folks that the College Golf Network crew brought with them. But I guess that would just be another general kind of thing that I think worked well for us, and that it's going to be different, obviously, for every area and every association. But if you're able to, partner with some sort of a voice who, brings a high level of credibility to the stream, I think that helped as well. Just maybe if people are on the fence, if they see, oh, hey, Dan Roan is involved with this, like it must be legit, that was something that we feel like it worked for us as well. So.
Yeah, and then lastly, building on that, I think we mentioned the time aspect of it, but I think it's important to note the time aspect of the stream itself, how long you're looking to stream that. Our event was 2 rounds over 2 days, and the College Golf Network unfortunately had an event on that Saturday out of town. So they were able to provide some social media coverage for us there, but we didn't have any live stream. And I think going into it, we wanted to live stream both days, but the Sunday live stream amounted to probably over 5 hours of being on air. So that might be something that HGAs may want to look at if that's something that you can fill 5 hours, if you want to go longer, if you think it's more, if it's beneficial to go lower than that. That's something that I think we're going to continue to discuss if we want to do both days, the final round, things of that nature. So just something to think about as you plan out your streams.
Absolutely. And then kind of just want to ask the both of you if there's any additional comments or just anything you have to say about this event in terms of the live coverage in addition to the questions that we've asked.
No, I mean, it was a really fun experience. Tim and I think before getting in the Golf Association world, kind of had more of like a video background in terms of what we did in college and some of our, early professional roles. So it was kind of nice to get back into that realm a little bit. So it was something that we really enjoyed. It was definitely a challenge and something new, but something that I think at the end of the day was very beneficial and something that I enjoyed and really helped elevate the event overall. So
yeah, and I would just add that our event took place on a weekend following a week in which we had one of our high-level championships during the week. So we were probably on day 6 or 7 of working in a row. So we were a little tired going into it, but I think Casey and I both kind of looked at each other on Saturday and saw the fulfillment and joy that these adaptive golfers get out of playing in these events. And it's different than playing in a competitive or covering a competitive championship of ours. These players are really happy to be there. They don't care what their scores are. Seeing the camaraderie, somebody makes a birdie and other players in their group are giving them fist bumps and things of that nature. That's something that you're not going to see at a state am or things of that nature. So I think we got a lot of fulfillment and joy in covering these athletes, and then seeing the joy that they got out of us covering them and just being at the event as a whole, I think made it all worth it in the end.
As a reminder, if your association would like to highlight a program or initiative, please reach out to me, Santana Shipley at shipley@iaga.org.